United States submarine base at Key West, Florida. A dispatch that quoted President Truman's press secretary, Charles Ross, as saying that President Truman has no knowledge of any secret project by this company that gives substance to the existence of such objects. Ross also said that the Air Force is today devised such
I hope everyone got to hear that.
Oh man! Remember, my favorite Cora is when we did the entire episode about the Wendigos, and someone was like, "That was a really cool effect that you putting one breathing in the background," and we're like, "What the fuck are they talking about?" And it was just Cora.
Dude, I don't know if you've seen me do it, but I'll put myself on mute, and then I'll have to turn around and go like, Cora, hey, wake up! Yeah. Because like she snores in just homeostasis, but when she's asleep, it's even worse. It's so and it's like it's crazy. And so I have to like wake her up, but
it's right like as soon as little goblin under your bed.
She is. Right as soon as I put her down, she let out like her exacerbated that's the noise that really gets me, is when she's irritated and she just lets it all out. Very dramatic. But
bless her. I love her so much.
I was going to actually say, hey, what's up? My name is Noelle, and we've truly experienced a tragedy today, and for that, I would like to start off with this.
So why was you in my boyfriend's bed wearing his t-shirt and his boxers and etc.? Because we had sex, you dumb bitch.
Yeah, pour one out for a real one. Actually, I'm gonna take to Jerry.
Let me do a little sip. Cheers to Jerry Springer, who passed on into a better plane today. He died of cancer, apparently a diagnosis that took a turn. He was 87? No.
Yeah, he was up there.
Former mayor of Cincinnati.
Okay, did not know that.
Yeah, literally. What? He was 79.
Okay, that's a good age for a guy.
Yeah.
It's like
fairly good age, but honestly, too soon for the king. The messiest man to ever exist. Truly, I looked forward to taking sick days from school because it means I got to sit and watch Jerry Springer.
Yeah, for those of us whose parents did not give them cable growing up, that was our salacious content that gave us like a finger on the pulse of the real world.
Mm-hmm.
And for that, I am grateful.
Yeah. To this day, one of the best clips ever is of another RIP, Peter Steele of Typo Negative, goes on Jerry Springer. And Jerry's like, how you doing today, Peter? And he's like, in the most Peter Steele voice ever, he's like, less miserable. And I was like, this is the greatest interview of all time.
I love it.
So, RIP Jerry Springer. Bummer fucking day.
Yeah.
Bummer for messy communities all around. I miss back in the day when we would just let people fight on reality TV. Reality TV was letting people fight, including members of the audience. There was nothing cooler than an audience member standing up on the Jerry Springer set, talking shit to a person on the stage, and an actual fist fight ensuing. And it's not like that pussy shit we see nowadays where like they start yelling at each other, they start walking at each other, and then security comes in and breaks it up. There was full-blown fistfights, and that's the way TV should be, in my humble opinion.
Dude, and then his bodyguard, Steve. Fucking...
He got his own show, too.
He did.
Man.
Love Steve, man. I hope he's doing okay. And I know Jerry Springer had a daughter, and he was, like, her biggest fan. I think she was on Dancing with the Stars, or he was on Dancing with the Stars, but, like... Uh-oh, I just Googled Steve, and this looks like a mugshot.
No!
Damn it, Steve, charged with drunk driving.
No!
Yep. In 2018.
Wow, that was recent. Honestly, we'll just say that it was like he just hung out with the people on the show too often. It rubbed off on him.
He was involved in a 1-car crash, so at least he only took himself out.
You know what? If we're looking for a silver lining, at least it's that.
Yeah. But he was found by a cop.
Oh,
Took him to the hospital.
that will do it. That will do it. Oh boy. Speaking of mugshots, there's a lawyer on TikTok who's like the real life Saul Goodman. Like, he clearly dyes his hair and is probably 110 years old, but he's iced the fuck out, a ring on every single finger, diamonds bigger than my head, and everyone's like, if my lawyer walks in that iced out, I know I'm winning. And I agree. And he says, tip for everyone, do not smile in your mugshot. And he brings this up because there's a resurgence of mugshot shouties. Do you know about this? Mugshot shouties?
No.
And I'm saying it because it's spelled with an AW. Mugshot shouties is an account where, pretty big on Twitter. Surprised you haven't seen it because I'm pretty sure it's on Reddit as well. But it's like hot girls, haughty girls, like mugshots, and everyone in the comments being like, I can fix her. So he's like, even though it seems alluring to be put on mugshot shouties, do not smile in your mugshot because it can be used as evidence against you to show that you were not sympathetic to the crime, and it can be showed to the jury. And most jurors, he gave some big percent, most jurors, when they see someone smiling in a mugshot, they immediately vote against them. So,
whoops. Yeah.
There you go. There's my hot tip of the day. Who are you?
And I'm Chelsea. I didn't prepare in advance for this, so as usual, I am left open mouthed like a frog.
Okay. That works. Maybe more like a snapping turtle. I think they leave their mouths open and wait for things to come inside.
I love that. Actually,
that is also what he said. So, speaking of things completely unrelated, we alluded to getting into a little bit of like folklore-ish culture and roots with Appalachian folklore, which we're going to dive into later. But Chelsea is leaving for Italy on Saturday, and so she gave us a little slice of rigatoni pie, if you will.
Yeah, so very, very, very excited. I was going to pull up a mugshot of someone that we both know, but let's go into this. We put it in chat real quick.
Oh my god, what are you were just going to leave that?
Well, I'll leave it for you specifically. But if you can find it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Anyway.
I want that Justin Bieber. I like the way you laugh.
All right. So we're going to Italy, my guys.
Woo!
So witchcraft has a long history in Italy dating back to the ancient Roman period. It was during the medieval era that witchcraft was seen as an exceptional threat to Christian society because people believed that it went hand in hand with devil worship.
I feel like you would be one of those people up until recently, dare I say.
I hope I wouldn't be, but, probably.
I think you were. I think you were. You were hesitant to witchcraft and the occult because you felt like it was devil worship.
It was when we got our tarot read, and I was like, I have to tell you, I'm feeling Christian guilt right now. I was terrified, but she did a great job in appeasing my fears. I feel like I'm a little bit better at not being terrified, but yet I still am.
That's what I say.
Kind of stuff. But you know what? You might be right, because as you and I have discussed at length in private, I'm on my Bridgerton kick. Mm-hmm. And I, with my whole heart and soul, told Oliver I would have thrived in that society of doing nothing.
Yeah.
But getting married and just popping out babies. I would have been the fucking queen of it. These people going and they're picking out different fabrics. Mm-hmm. I would have had a doctorate in picking out fabrics and just being a tool of the patriarchy. Yeah,
it's an unfortunate truth, and I'm just glad that you have come around to accepting that reality.
I'm like a hermit crab, but my shell is a tin can. I have adapted to the bullshit around me. But
Yeah.
ooh, if I get into that open ocean of time travel back to Bridgerton,
Of women's oppression.
Yeah, women's oppression, man. I would have fucking thrived because I want to do nothing and make decisions never. Which is a terrible thing to say, but I appreciate you keeping me grounded on my nonsense.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, I feel you. I get wrapped in those. We've talked about it on here before. I'll get wrapped in those mind loops where I'm like, maybe, like, sometimes paying your bills gets so hard, and having a job and being a leader in the workplace becomes so hard that you are like, ooh, maybe I could just be property to a man.
Yeah, right.
Like, maybe I could just not do there again.
If Oliver and I ever go our separate ways, God forbid, I'm getting on fucking Christian Mingle, or I'm getting on like farmerwantsawife.com, and I'm like, impregnate me. I am nothing. I will just.
Farmer wants a wife.
You know what I mean? Like, hell, you tell me I'm not allowed to talk to those women folk at the grocery store, and I'll be like, okay. Like, you tell me I don't have to work anymore? I'd have no autonomy? If that's the bill I gotta pay, but the bill is to myself, so it just, it's the real trickle-down economics, actually.
Yeah, it's true trickle-down. I will say, as someone who was back in the dating scene recently, it's not good out there, kids, and you should just change your dating age to 55 to 80 and put in that profile specifically, I am looking to be taken care of. And in turn, I will take care of you. Wink. And that's it.
Yeah, I have a fertile uterus and nothing but time.
That's it. You know what I'm saying?
I don't have to have a mind of my own. I can record the podcast in a basement where you don't hear me while you're at work, and only after the house has been properly cleaned and dinner is prepared. You just let me know.
Yeah.
I will.
Let's get to that point. Let's get to that point. Have you gone to the grocery store lately? I can't afford this.
Oh my God. You are so right, and it hurts so bad because like there's times where I'm like, I need deodorant, and I'm like, why is it $6?
Yes, literally.
I'm like, I got the secret powder fresh that is the bottom shelf. That's like on par with like Boots Farm alcohol from Costco, or Boone's Farm alcohol from Costco. You know what I mean? And I'm like,
yeah,
it's
trust
rough.
me.
So
trust me, girl. So anyway, speaking of an era in which we would have thrived.
Yes, there were numerous witch hunts and trials which took place in Italy during this time, with some of the most brutal of hunts happening in the Lombardy and Tuscany regions. In fact, they were so severe was the fear of witchcraft, and the trials so relentless that hundreds of women were executed under suspicion of witchcraft.
I'd like to know if it was like a ancient version of McCarthyism, where it was like not necessarily that the girlies were doing silly fun times and maybe like getting their tits out and dancing under a full moon, or if it was more of like I don't like Sarah, so I'm gonna go ahead and say that she's a witch.
We're gonna get into it because witchcraft in Italy is so different than like witchcraft that we perceived in our own American history of the Salem witchcraft trials.
Well, good. I'm excited.
Very well. Yeah. So, actually, speaking of the Salem witchcraft trials.
Speaking of exactly what we were talking about.
Unlike Puritan culture in the United States, Italy has what I would describe as pockets of witches in different regions, and they aren't necessarily hiding in the shadows, so to speak. So we are going to start with the Benandanti and their unique history.
This is interesting because, like, I've heard of the Benandanti as like a closed practice religion. So
really?
To hear it, so to hear it come up as a pocket of witches, which is a cool band name, is interesting. So I'm excited to hear this point of view.
Yeah, so that's really fascinating that you. I mean, there's pockets of it that still kind of exist, but interesting. I did not know. Fascinating. Anyway, so I'm just impressed. Okay, when we talked, we just went on this long rant about preparation and the shit we know, and we're like, come and get me, and here you demonstrate it still. So kudos to you.
Well, I think it's more of like, much like how we had the thought of, I wish that there was a way that we could appreciate our culture and not have it be based in racism and slavery and horrendousness. And I think a lot of people, like Italian Americans, for example, are going back to try to learn more about cultural practices, and maybe what we would just consider superstitious practices. And then Ben and Dondi,
I put the pronunciation in the document.
Ben Dante. There you go. They pop up, but the rituals that they partake in, the cleansings that they do, the kind of, honestly, rituals or spell casting, whatever you want to call it, whatever makes you feel more comfortable, get brought up. But it gets brought up in the context of, like, this is a closed practiced religion.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's interesting. But yeah, please tell me more.
So the Benandanti means good walkers or good doers. They were members of a folk tradition in the Friuli region in northeastern Italy, and they believed that they had been called to fight against malevolent witches in spirit during their dreams. And considering we literally just did an episode about incubi and succubi, this is a pretty cool synchronicity to stumble upon. So if you are listening and you are going through this, maybe dabble in a little bit of what the beliefs that these people have brought to light, especially since there is a renaissance of like folk magic coming out, especially in Italy. So the Benandanti emerged in the 16th century and were active until the 17th century. They were mostly peasants and laborers, and their battles with witches took place in the fields. They protected the crops and livestock from malevolent forces of witchcraft. They claimed to have spirit bodies that could leave their physical bodies while they slept, and they engaged in battle with witches in this spirit form. They held their meetings on Thursday nights, another synchronicity, because guess which days we record on?
Thursday nights, girl.
Hey! And which they referred to as the garzare or embrace. During these gatherings, they would come together in small groups, meeting in various locations, such as the branches of certain trees. That's so fucking cool and also so fucking scary. Or abandoned buildings. Imagine just like you scuttle upon the forest and you just look up and there's all these people like fucking fighting witches in your dreams. Yeah, just perched at you like a little gargoyle.
It would be terrifying and cool.
It's like, it reminds me of Hereditary, where all the naked cultists come and they're just surrounding the house. How ominous and creepy would that be?
Yeah.
But anyway, they had a lot of ritualistic activities. They would dance and sing together, a lot of drumming. They would recite prayers and invocations, and they sought divine aid in their fight against witches. So in addition to these ritualistic activities, the Benandanti also believed that they had like this inherent blessing by God in order to participate in these battles. And they referred to this ability as going out in spirit, which was the central part of their beliefs and practices. And they also had very special meetings, which they did 4 times a year, only on Ember days, where they allegedly rode on bunnies, which is adorable, cats, and other animals to reach these special meeting places. So unlike witches, the Benandanti did not display any satanic traits, such as like the bastardizing of faith, cursing of the sacrament or the cross, or homage to the devil. But they did have some things that we do find very similar when we think about witches in the traditional sense. So they would use fennel branches to fight against sorcerers, who were armed with broom-like reeds, which gives us some of the earliest depictions of using wands and broomsticks. So if defeated in these fights, they believed that the region that they were protecting would experience scarcity and even famine with their crops. So historians have found that the Benedicti believed that they were initiated into an order literally by an angel from heaven. And this happened when they were between 20 and 28 years old. And they were organized in a military fashion under a captain, and all members were bound to secrecy. But at their meetings, as many as 5,000 of them would be present, and some members were either local to the region or they would travel from distant provinces. So despite all this, like on paper, they were not considered to be witches within their respective regions. In fact, they were actually seen as defenders of the community, fighting evil forces that threatened the well-being of their neighbors. So Noelle, I have to ask you then, we're doing an episode about Italian witchcraft. Why would we open it up with people who were not considered to be witches?
Because they thought they were fighting the witches. They were the anti-witch.
Well, sadly, you're not quite
are they
correct.
Are they now considered witches? Do they look back on them historically and call them witches? Or is it because they're the witches of Christ?
They were only depicted as satanic, witch-loving worshippers because the motherfucking church came in.
Oh, typical. So the church came in and said that they're witches now?
Yep.
Oh
exactly
my
what
God.
happened.
Why? How? I should have guessed. You know what? I should have guessed.
I'm surprised you didn't, because I literally wrote, you guessed it. That's like sealed in blood within our Google Doc.
The thing about it is that, like, they refer to themselves as, like, the defenders of Christ, the defenders of good, divinely inspired, the anti-witch. So, it's like, I'm not surprised that the church comes in and bastardizes things, but it's just like, it's like that you wish that they had like a PR team, right? To be like, these are your allies. Like, these are your allies. This is how you can get like, you can intertwine. Because like the church did things like the bastardization of Easter, right? By taking pagan rituals of the spring equinox and trying to make it Christian, hence Easter. And obviously same thing goes for Christmas and Halloween, whatever. Yeah. And so it's like they knew they would like do certain things to try to get people to come over and convert by giving it sprinkles of folk tradition, essentially. Yeah. And so it's interesting that this was the easiest version of that because they already had the basis of essentially what is Christianity. And they could have just made an ally rather than an enemy.
They could have slapped the title of exorcist on it. And they would have been fine.
I mean, that's exactly what it is. But, I mean, you want to know the tea? You want to know the fucking tea, though? Why that wouldn't work? Because what are the Benedicti, like, mostly made up of? What type of people?
Peasants. And ostracized.
And
women.
There it is. Women. Yep. I don't even think in modern days they really like to have like female priests, let alone a female exorcist. No fucking way. And that's what they basically are. So it makes
we will see it again and again.
That makes sense.
So yes, Noelle, you are right. It was the church. The powers that be within the religious hierarchy, of course, viewed the Benedicti as heretics, and the famous Inquisition investigated them as such. On March 21st, 1575, the Vicario Generale and the Inquisitor of the provinces of Aquileia and Concordia were first notified about the Benedicti. A trial was held in which 4 of them were accused of practicing witchcraft. That's actually not a very good number, 4 out of like 5,000, but I guess.
Yeah.
They were really revered in the area, though, so it wasn't surprising they couldn't get their hands on that many. So, although the accused and their respective communities claim that these people were actually on the side of God in an unending battle against witchcraft, the Inquisition was not pleased. The Benandanti proudly denied any insinuations by the Acquisition that they were promised delicious courses, women, or other salacious entertainments by their angel. The Inquisition,
Basically trying to be like, it was a devil surprise. It was a demon.
literally, yeah, that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're like, you weren't seeing an angel, you were seeing a demon. And they were like, no, we weren't, because we never did anything that would have violated church rules or law. And, but the Inquisition, following its stereotyped model of the Sabbath, interrogated the Benandanti about such things, and they stayed steadfast in their denial. Although the church did ultimately release them, which is so surprising to me. That was actually one of the most surprising things I read in this entire expedition into this this subject matter. They did definitely suppress the practices of the Benandanti and painted them in an unfavorable eye within the church.
I think the fact that they weren't executed speaks to how powerful, and not like by mystical sense, I mean within the community.
Culturally, they were very powerful.
Yeah, how culturally powerful and how community oriented and respected they were.
Yeah.
That even the church who was putting them on trial was like, if we execute them, we will see riots. We will not be able to take full ownership of this land.
Kind of, yeah. The four were let go. But less powerful members of the Benandanti were charged as heretics, and they were imprisoned, tortured, or burned at the stake.
Well, I mean, that makes sense, though. Like, on a political play, you're going to keep your highest ranking. Yeah. And then the rank and file can go, because they still have to show their dick. It's the church.
And also, like, how do you cripple a community? You remove the movers and shakers, and you put them in prison, or you torture them, or at the very worst, you kill them. And then what happens? It eventually disappears. The Benandanti lasted about a century. They are, kind of like getting a re-emergence as like folk magic takes hold back in all over the world, really. But the church did them dirty.
Oh no, but it makes sense. It's like such a power play by the church to like keep the highest, most respected members to be like, look we understand, but it's more of like a political move, because you keep the highest ranking people to prevent like riots and fights and revolt, but you still get rid of the bottom rank to show that you are still the church, you are still the most powerful, and you should be feared.
100%. Case in point, look at what just happened with like in Tennessee politics, where they removed the political representatives from office. There was a massive outcry. They reinstated them. These were people of color, but they're still doing all the bullshit at the bottom of the barrel of society, so to speak, where they're like, okay, we're not going to remove you for speaking out against like violence against people of color, but we're not going to make any policy changes. Yeah.
It was Justin and Justin from the Tennessee House. Yeah. And they spoke out against gun violence and stood with the protesters who had come in to speak on it, them as well as a white woman. The three out of the three, only the white woman was kept in the house. The other two were voted out, and the outcry was so loud, and what happened was so salacious, because there was literally a sitting representative who was charged with sexual assault. There was a sitting representative who had been charged with like crimes against a minor, and yet they voted almost unanimously to remove those two men. And the outcry was so loud that they brought them back, but it's all like for show, because they brought them back because they were forced to by the people, by the voters in whom they are supposed to represent, but they are basically crippling them through policy and procedure to get nothing done. And that's like what this is like an ancient version of that as well. Like we will allow you to think that you are represented by keeping them there, but we will choke out any possibility into allowing it to continue.
Oh, at the end of the day, we're still gunning down babies in schools.
1,000%.
But I hope you feel better that your representatives were reinstated.
Yeah.
Exactly what happened here.
Yeah.
And I think the fact that we don't give a shit about like sexual misconduct of men in power goes hand in hand with any organization. Like it just doesn't matter. They don't care. And that's the end of the Benandanti. They got run out of town. So next we're going to talk about the Genera or Genara. Let's say Genara. It sounds more fun.
Yeah.
This is another of the many species of witches belonging to the tradition of the rural and peasant world, widespread in southern Italy and in particular the Benevento area. I'm struggling. My mouth is so dry.
Great job.
I drank the last of my wine for Jerry Springer, and now I just have water. But sometimes water makes, like, with the Mio in it, makes my mouth feel more dry. Anyway,
don't say that. Don't say that to the haters.
I know. I won't. Oh my god, no! Water is delicious. I'll also drink my Baja Blast from Taco Bell.
There you go. That'll do it. Yeah.
Oh, delicious.
Healed.
So the Genara is a name, or is a take on the name of Dianara, or the priestess of Diana, or the Roman goddess of the moon. We also know her as Artemis. Yeah. So these types of witches aren't held in nearly as high a favor as the Benandati because they definitely have a more devilish reputation.
Ooh, devilish.
They were seen as a lonely and solitary woman who in everyday life would be extremely aggressive if caught. It is believed that they would go out at night, sneak into horse stables, and steal mares to ride in the moonlight. She would braid the horse's hair, which would leave kind of like her calling card and a sign of her presence. And this is actually something I've heard of before when I get into the folk magic area of TikTok, because as cute as it sounds, finding a braid in your horse's hair could be a sign of impending doom for your beloved companion.
Doom.
And yes, Noelle, doom. In fact, in 2009, there were enough locals in southern Italy who noticed braids in their horse's hair that it sparked some media attention in the area. And according to The Guardian, residents grew concerned as more and more of their horses began popping up with elaborate braids in their manes, especially after a full moon.
I would just like to think that it was like some local 10-year-old girl who was watching all of these YouTube videos on how to like French braid and didn't have anyone to practice on. So she walked over to local farms and was like, great, I'll practice here.
Yeah, that's what you want it to be.
Because elaborate braids, not just like a little guy, elaborate. We're talking like getting winter formal type updos.
Khaleesi braids. Yeah, we're getting Khaleesi braids up in here.
Yeah, straight up.
The police, who initially thought it was thieves who were trying to mark horses that they wanted to steal, eventually actually stumbled into the idea of not magic with a K, which is what they eventually attributed this entire debacle to. Like the police were like, oh, it's not magic. In fact, from the article, Police Chief Tim Poole, who investigated the incident, said...
Tim Poole?
Tim Poole.
That's an unfortunate name. How does he spell it?
Timpoole.
Oh, thank God, there's an E.
He said, quote, "We have some very good information from a warlock that this is part of a magic ritual and it is to do with not magic." Further on in the article, it says that it would appear that for people of this belief, not magic is used when they want to cast a spell. Some of the gods they worship have a strong connection to horses, so if they have a particular request, plating this knot in a horse's mane lends strength to the request. So
that is interesting.
Isn't that fun?
That is so fun. I love that they spoke to. I love that they spoke to a local warlock, and he was like, "Guess what, you guys? I've figured it out."
Isn't that, I know, I love that. So in this case, the horses were okay, but when the Janara was involved, that wasn't always the case. Often, the braided sign of her presence often meant that the mare, exhausted by the long ride and unable to bear the immense effort, would eventually die of fatigue. Obviously, concerned for the health of their horses, the locals would take to placing a sack of salt or a broom in front of the doors of the stables, believing that the Janara couldn't resist the temptation to count the grains of salt or the strings of the broom.
They're just out here like, oh, I gotta get it. I gotta count.
Yeah, but again, now we're starting to get into some of the similarities where you put salt around entrances to protect yourself from demonic entities entering your home. That's something that's still practiced to this day. My mom used to do it. Or brooms, again, within like witchcraft symbolism. Pop up in these different regions.
This is just so fun. And I mean, I guess maybe that's why like they're like demonic light, because there's the putting a salt perimeter around an area to make it a sacred, safe space, like a threshold unable to be passed by anything evil and whatever. Whereas they're just putting the salt out because the Janara have OCD and have to count every single individual piece of salt.
As someone whose obsessions revolve,
grain of salt,
or someone's obsessions compel them to count,
you relate.
I'd be done.
It'd be over for you.
And it was believed that they would be so consumed by their counting that the sun would eventually come up and they'd have to leave. Like, they don't do well. They have no power in the sunlight because they're children of the moon. So according to tradition, though, this is fun. Owners who stayed up late could watch their salt and brooms and wait for the Janara to come. And while she was in the middle of her ritualistic counting, they could catch her by grabbing her hair. And it was thought that if you caught a Janara this way, she would be so desperate for freedom that she would offer to guard her captors and their children, their children's children, for 7 generations, so long as they let her go.
This is so interesting because I feel like this is how we could also catch you. If we just put enough salt grains out for you to count and grab you by your hair while you're in the middle of obsessively counting them. And then we ask you to guard our homes and our next 7 generations, you would. It's interesting.
Oh, yeah. I'm making promises left and right. I'm about to go on Farmer's Mingle. If I have to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, okay, yeah, you getting it. But I don't know. I love like the
that was the biggest breath into the microphone ever known to man.
I love the persistence of like folk magic that still carries on to this day, and we have no idea why. But then you get into this stuff and you're like, is that why? Salt in the doorway? Like,
yeah,
it's fun.
It's interesting because it's like, I can't really say if it's a synchronicity or an evolution. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If it's either like, no, everywhere around the world around the same time, people were using salt as a form of protection against evil, or if this is one of the sources in which it started from, and like telephone, it has evolved and now it's no longer like witches count grains of salt and that's why they don't come in, not because they're like afraid or there is some sort of power within a salt perimeter that they cannot pass. It is that they are too busy being obsessed with counting how many grains of salt are around them. That's just way more fun and less devilish, but it's interesting to like think about like where it all came from.
And I know that this is actually part 1 of a 2-part series in which you will get into some of this other stuff, but it's going to be interesting if you happen to stumble across any of the explanations or evolutions of some of these practices.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what conclusions we can draw, because I definitely want to focus on more of like the folklore and ritual now that we're going to like get the history base down. So it's going to be fun.
And I had to pick and choose. There was so much stuff that went back to like the 40 AD in that region. And I'm like, I cannot go back that far.
Yeah,
We don't have the time. So maybe someday in the future. But instead, we're going to bounce over to the witches of Valcamonica. This region has a pretty complex religious history. And I think this also lends to how pagan and folk magic got so popular in Italy, because this region in particular was not fully converted to Christianity until the 5th century. But even by the 8th century, the area was still practicing paganism. This was because the Romans were pretty notorious with letting like conquering a region and then being like, whatever, just pay taxes.
Yeah.
So I think it was able to take root in some of the more forgotten parts, where obviously like later on Christianity came in full pendulum and just wiped it out.
I also think that these are the types of regions where we get that fun blend of attempted modern day Christianity and old folk pagan traditions, which is my favorite.
Yeah, especially because like they have to persist because they aren't just dying, so they evolve into different ways. And it's something that we've been talking about a lot lately, how Appalachian magic uses the Bible to like cast spells and stuff. So it'd be interesting. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it next time. But so in this region in particular, in 1498, that's when stern laws were issued against all devilish heresy. And in 1499, the area was seen as not like revoking devilish heresy, and the church believed that black masses were overtaking the entire region.
Typical church shit. Someone was just playing their music a little too loud and moving those hips a little too quick, and the church was like,
Shakira, Shakira was in the area. She wasn't lying, and they got this. And the reason why it got the attention of the church was because at the very center of it was a group of witches who were said to have lived in the valley of the Lombardy region of northern Italy. The history of these witches is shrouded in mystery and legend, but it is believed that they were active in the region primarily during the Middle Ages. They were known for their expertise in herbalism, divination, and spellcasting, and were feared and respected by the people of the valley, very similar to the Benedonti. So, according to legend, the witches of Valcamonica were originally a group of women who were ostracized from the local community due to their nonconformity and independent ways.
Oh, some cool girls.
Not really that cool. It was like women who had never married.
Cool girl.
Yeah, so or like widows, you know what I mean, who didn't remarry. It wasn't anything like
cool girls.
Yeah. So
they were groovy of their time, if you think about it.
They were, yeah. They were non-problematic women who made their way in the world, and it pissed off a lot of people. So they turned to the practice of witchcraft as a means of survival, but their witchcraft was mostly using their knowledge of plants and natural remedies to heal the sick and injured, and they also casted spells for protection and good luck. Over time, their reputation grew, and they became known as powerful and influential members in the local community. In fact, they are one of the more popular shamanistic practices that we can locate in that area. They were said to gather in secret places, such as ancient stone circles and sacred groves that are scattered throughout the valley, where they would perform their rituals and cast spells, invoking the spirits of the land and elements to aid them in their magic. They were said to have a deep connection with the natural world and the spirits that dwelled within it, and were known for their ability to communicate with animals and the spirits of the dead.
Isn't it so sad to think that, like, basically cool Snow White, who also would like brew a tea to help you with your sinus infection and talk to animals, was like bastardized by the church and shunned?
Dude, imagine someone coming after your grandma for just giving you Vicks Vapor Rub.
That's really what it is.
Yeah. Like,
typical.
Just like, oh, you don't feel good? Like, a spoonful of peanut butter will cure your hiccups. It's like the most unproblematic form of magic ever. Yeah. But as we often see in history, and even right now, if we're being honest, anytime any group on the fringes of society begin to have power, in comes the man to take them down a notch or two, and such is the case of these women. Again, enter the church and their witchcraft trials. These trials began in the late 16th century, at a time when the Catholic Church was actively pursuing a campaign against witchcraft throughout Europe. Again, this is when they were kind of taking out the Benedicti as well. They were spurred on by the actions of a local priest, Father Giovanni Battista de Breda, who began denouncing supposed witches in the region to the authorities.
Oh, so a rat. Father rat.
Yeah. I bet like one woman didn't give in to his romantic advances, and that's probably like what caused him to be so bitter.
Oh, I would bet all the money in the world.
And this led to a wave of accusations and arrests, with the accused being subjected to harsh interrogation methods in an attempt to extract confessions. They were accused of practicing black magic and consorting with demons, and were often the target of persecution and violence. Many of them were forced to flee the valley or face imprisonment and execution.
Isn't it just so interesting? Like, when we think of black magic now, I think a lot of us almost get like the satanic panic imagery where it's like heavy metal, gore, blood, sacrificing babies and virgins.
I just get anything devilish.
Yeah, but like black magic back then was like cutting up a potato and wrapping it around your foot to help you cure your flu.
Yeah, that was like, or like using like mint in your tea to clear a sinus infection.
Yeah, it's just so wild.
Yeah, it was very much the same thing of drinking tea.
No, literally. And then even to think of like, and it was that shit that made them come up with some of the most truly demonic things ever to exist in the form of the ways that they tortured people.
There are entire museums in Italy that are torture museums for what they did to these women.
Yeah. It's just like, wow.
It is horrifying. And also we know that they went through so much like sexual torture. Barbaric.
Yeah. It's there. If there's one thing that we can always find with religious persecution, it's hypocrisy, because they sit here and they say, we're doing these things because you are of the devil, cohorting with the devil, whatever. And then they are, whether you believe in the devil or not, they are creating what you could describe as true hellish horrors in reality. Yeah. So it's interesting. And by interesting, I mean horrific.
Yeah. The evil resides within the people trying to...
always.
Yeah. So...
Just like today.
Weird. So many of those accused of witchcraft were women who, like we said, were already marginalized within society, such as being widows or beggars. In the trials, they were accused of causing illness or death through the use of spells and charms, as well as engaging in sexual acts with the devil. Some of the accused were also said to have flown through the air on broomsticks or other objects.
They wish.
Oh, that would be so fun.
Can you imagine?
To just fly around on a broom. I would Harry Potter my ass, like, left and right. I would, like, fly on my broom to, like, go turn the light off.
Yeah, I
wouldn't walk anywhere.
No, I wouldn't walk anywhere. Also, there's no way that brooms could have survived into the modern age because the oil companies wouldn't allow it.
Yeah, they would have found a way somehow. So these trials were particularly tragic and brutal. The first trial occurred between 1505 and 1510. And in 1505, 7 women and 1 man were burned at the stake in Senmo Val Camonica. Man, sometimes these Italian words just like get me, even though they're like not particularly that hard. I just know that I don't know them.
It's just a lot of vowels sometimes.
It's just like a lot of words from my tiny little villainous mouth.
Yeah.
In 1510, witches were burned, and they were accused of causing droughts by magic. Could you imagine being blamed for the fucking weather? Insane.
Dude, it's a classic. It's a classic.
60 women and men confessed to having injured people, animals, and land with their spells and caused fires with the help of Satan. All confession through torture, of course.
Some people would say that this is what causes the fires in California every year as well.
Yeah, our governor made us all pray for rain last year, remember? That was what he tweeted.
He literally did.
I'm I'll throw out a good vibe, college vibe, but you got to stop polluting the environment and
yeah, you got to stop taking
fracking at least.
Yeah, stop fracking. Stop taking our reserve water shelves and using them for private corporations.
Yeah,
maybe give that water to the people, but never forget. Never fucking forget.
Interesting Utah politics. So the second trial occurred between 1518 and 1521, where another group of 60 women and men were burned at the stake in July of 1518. And they were accused of causing thunder and lightning storms by religious authorities in the area.
God, you can't win, can you?
Droughts and then rain.
Yeah.
Blip, blip. It's just upset.
Pick one.
They got a fistful of anger, and they have two hands. According to Atlas Obscura, the witch trials did not even begin to slow down after they killed hundreds of people. In fact, all that happened was they brought in reinforcements. So the Pope had to call in. So on February 15th, 1520, Pope Leo X petitioned for help from bishops of Veneti to assist with these trials and specifically stated that, quote, in Valcamonica, people of this damn sort particularly flourish.
Oh my God.
And no one was safe from these accusations. So again, according to Atlas Obscura, even established families like the Federicis faced prosecution. And to this day, a plaque sits on a tower called the Torre Federici, or Torre della Famiglia Federici, which now commemorates the violent incidents that took place in this region. The tower is about 60 feet tall, and it reads, in memory of Federici of Sonico, accused of heresy, and the victims burned at the stake for witchcraft in the 16th century in Valcamonica. Even at the time, people were like, this is madness. You're killing everybody.
Mm-hmm.
A tiny little region. Could you imagine people coming in, killing everybody who was a woman, who wasn't married, and didn't make very much money? They wiped them out.
It's just par on course for the fucking church, though. If this is what they love to do. They love to find any excuse that they can tie into whatever bullshit thread to go after the non-populace, whether it's women, people of color, the disabled, poor, whatever they are, the non-majority, they will always find a way to go after them and just fully eradicate them, but use it, hide under the guise of religion. And it's just a tale as old as time.
Yeah. If you do not need me, I will destroy you.
Exactly.
These trials do ultimately reflect the widespread fear and paranoia surrounding witchcraft during this period, as well as the vulnerability of certain groups within society. The trials have also been seen as a means of exerting control over the population by authorities, who used accusations of witchcraft as a tool of repression and social control. Some historians also believe that it was the allowance of pagan rituals to exist for so long that the church had to come down with an iron fist to flush these people out once and for all, or at the very least force them even further into the fringes of society.
Mm-hmm.
Despite the dark history of witchcraft trials in Italy, there has been a renewed interest in the practice in recent times. This is partly due to the growing popularity of neo-paganism and Wicca in Italy and other parts of the world. And Italy boasts rich folklore that rivals even that of the Appalachian region, and many Italian witches practice traditional forms of witchcraft that have been passed down through generations.
I also think that a resurgence of the kind of folklore, folk magic, folk religion, if you will, whether you want to call it paganism, neo-paganism, or Wicca, when you look at these areas that have been supremely dominated by religion, and specifically Catholics, and specifically like the stronghold of the Catholic faith,
Mhm.
and you have nothing but evidence, trials, testimony coming out against the Catholic Church about all of their atrocities that they have committed in the past and are committing currently, where the Catholic Church is no longer synonymous with the house of God and more synonymous with the house of pedophilia.
Yeah.
And when you have that happening in your actual backyard, as they are in Italy, I think a lot of them, and especially a lot of the younger generations, are like, I've got to find something. I've got to turn to something. Like, who, if you want to look at, like, if this religion has always been peace and love wrong and doing wrong things and has a rich history of hurting and harming the innocent, who were they persecuting? And like go back and finding that and finding these essentially like initial religions, these
Yeah.
initial groups and beliefs, and learning about that, giving it life again. I think it has a lot to do with that as well. Just not feeling the constricting grip of the Catholic Church, or feeling empowered to say fuck you because of all the nasty shit that's come out about them,
Yeah.
and feeling empowered and protected to dig into the ancestral roots that you have.
Absolutely. As someone who has a skewed organized religion, I'm now free to adapt my beliefs through ancestral discovery. You know what I mean? And it's that's exactly what's happening right now, especially in Italy, because a lot of these groups that are coming back out and practicing witchcraft tend to be politically oriented. They advocate for women's rights, they advocate for social justice, and they are recognizing the history of persecution within their area. Florence, for example, has a museum dedicated to witchcraft and the occult, which shows artifacts and documents related to what they did to people in their history. And I feel like that's something that is like you said, this is in your own backyard. And if you're consistently marginalized, you have to adapt to something. And humans by nature have always attributed things that they don't understand to either magic or religion. And it's just the way that we're wired. Whether you read astrology or whether you look for synchronicities or whether you look for angel numbers, every brain is hardwired that way. And to see women in particular, take on this ancestral sword and re-up the battle, is fascinating. And I love to see it.
Oh, I love to see it as well. And I think especially for people like you, or people who want to blend together or braid together, if you will, their modern day Christian beliefs with ancestral folklore, essentially.
Yeah.
You have a perfect blend with the Ben and Donnie. You have this righteous ritual, if you will.
Yeah.
And when you really break it down at its core, religion has its own ritual as well. You just say it's in the name of God. And so it's vice versa. So whether you are dressing up to go to a specific building dedicated to the type of worship you perform on a specific day of the week, or you are stabbing at a bowl of water and olive oil to vanquish bad energy, they are essentially two sides of the same coin.
Absolutely. And they all probably adapted from the exact same thing. So
that's the truth of it all.
But yeah, the folklore, in conclusion, the folklore of Italy lives on to this day, of which we will pick back up on in 2 weeks' time, because I will not be here next week.
I hope that you get more insight into this.
I would love to go to that museum. I know that our days are packed to the brim, but I will do my very best to try to dip my toe into some of the folk magic there.
Well, I mean, at least see what you can see, right? Because I was showing you the cornicello, which is a horn And you see it on necklaces, bracelets. Sometimes people have them in their cars. Sometimes people have them like in the doorway. And it's supposed to be a protector of, like, I don't know, protector against like the evil eye or bad things happening to you, and just strength overall. They also have to me, it looks like, I forget the name of it, but it looks like the rock on hand, but it's upside down.
Yeah.
And apparently that's another way to like banish bad things from happening to you. Of course, they also are big fans of the evil eye protection. So yeah, I'm curious to see if you even see that around, like if you see that in areas.
I'm looking for it all. I Googled the horn necklace. There are shops that sell it, but I'm going to need to go to the Walmart of shops that sell it, because the one that I found, it's like 250 euros. And I was like,
Yeah.
nope, sorry, Noelle. I will make you one out of clay if I have to.
Yeah, don't make me like a one from actual gold.
Yeah, they are gold. So I'm going to look for them. I'm going to try my hardest to educate myself too about the region, which is why this was fun to do it, because I'm going to be in the heart of it. Like, all this stuff happened in like Florence.
Yeah.
That tower is in Florence, and that's what I will be looking for. It'd be cool to see that little dedication to him. I will try to capture content. Maybe we can splash it up on Patreon, so that there's at least something.
Yeah, take pictures if you see anything. So even the like essentially talismans created of like dried peppers are another thing. Like I used to just think they were a part of the decor of an Olive Garden, but they also come from Italian folk magic and a way to protect yourself.
I have like a little book of like Italian phrases. I think I'm gonna write some of the stuff in there of like what I'm looking for. That's like, so I can point it to people. Like, do you have this object, or do you know where I could like look for stuff like this? I think if I put my best foot forward, I won't come off like an asshole.
Yeah.
But I don't know, because I know that nobody likes us.
Yeah, just say you're Canadian or something.
I will never fucking do that. I will say I'm from the Dominican Republic.
Okay, yeah,
or
maybe
Cuba. I will never claim Canada.
Okay, yeah, just say you're anything but American.
Yeah.
And you'll have a good time.
Yeah. I'll say like I'm a very tired British person.
Yeah.
No, they'll be able to tell.
They would be able to. It's too close.
I'll say I'm from the Dominican Republic.
Yeah. But excited for you to go to Italy. Excited for us to learn more about Italian folklore. Excited for you to come back with some boots on the ground feedback. So yeah, speaking of boots on the ground, completely unrelated, you can get your boots in our ground by going to the link tree in any of our bios. We are at Go to Hell Podcast. I am at Noelle Fain. That is at Sithlard. In that link tree, you can find a link to our Patreon. $1 gets you in. New episodes every week. It's a great time. You signed an NDA. Don't fucking say anything you hear on there, okay?
Snitches get stitches. I swear.
We'll know if it's you, because like you're the only people who know. So like we'll know. Like
we have a list.
We will literally know it's you. So keep your fucking mouth shut. You can also find a link to our merch. Always donated. Of course, we still have the drag t-shirt. 100% of those proceeds are donated to Drag Story Hour. So check that out. Did we ever find out who wore the shirt?
No, they never reached out.
Please, if that was you, again, now's your time to come forward. Or don't, but I think you should. I think you should tell us, because I would love, honestly, we might give you something for free.
It could just be somebody who supports the message from like Facebook, but doesn't listen to podcast.
Well, I don't want to hear that. So I know that they listen to the podcast. So let us know.
Fair.
In that link tree, you can also find Kelly Holloran or at Wildwood Owl on Etsy's page. She makes cool merch for us, and she also makes cool merch in general, and also specifically for like the state of Michigan. So go check it out. It's really cool. She's amazing. She's great. We also have a link to our Discord server, our Facebook group for the boomers, and I don't know why you'd need it, but places to listen to us. So that's everything you can find there, girl. Now more than ever, mostly because Chelsea's about to get on a long flight that she is nervous about, and also because of what we just talked about and how exciting it is to dive into the fun parts of culture. I would like to give a Hail Satan.
Nah, so I'm gonna say Hail Baby Jesus because I am so fucking terrified of getting on this fucking airplane that I'm not even gonna be sarcastic and facetious. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you should. Why don't you go find some saints, right?
Yeah, I have a Saint Christopher actually, who's the patron saint of travel. So I'm
Because
like,
here,
nom 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 nom.
this is
nom,
what
nom.
I'm. This is as just someone who's going off of straight statistics. Okay.
I don't even want. I can't even talk about it, dude. I haven't been sleeping. Like I've maybe gotten 3 hours of sleep, and then today, like you at our work, at our place of employment, we have meetings with our bosses once a week.
Mhm.
I know that I talk a big game about not complaining about my personal life to my boss, but all I did was fucking complain about going on the airplane, and I'm tapped out.
Yeah, I bet no one can relate to it too. That's the fun part. It's like we work in like the travel industry, so like everyone is like, "Oh my god, you're going to Italy!" Like no one even cares to hear like your
fucked.
anxiety about the plane. But all I'm saying is that statistically, if you're gonna pray to someone, I wouldn't pray to Jesus because like people do it all the time and shit be happening. If you know what I'm saying.
No, that's my guy. That's my
So
home.
you gotta that's why I say go to the saint, right? Maybe he's got better stats because as far as I'm concerned, stats only, the guy that you're betting on, you're gonna lose.
No, I'm betting. You gotta, you're being like way too negative and it's making my anxiety go through the fucking roof. I'm all in. I'm fucking all in.
Yeah,
I'm all in on
little
Baby
saint.
J. You gotta
get your little saint out. You got some crystals in your pocket.
Yeah, I'll call in the ancestral magic. Make my mom put me in a cocoon and make my sister fucking scissor kick any bad energy away from me.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
Also, the other crystal in your pocket is going to be Klonopin.
Valium. Oh, yeah, Valium.
So, yeah, you're going to be okay.
So, what a perfect blend of religion and science. Valium, Baby Jesus, and Saint Christopher.
There you go. That'll do it.
The triarchy, the Triforce.
That's the real Father, Son, Holy Spirit, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh my god, yeah. So I look forward to getting no fucking sleep again, and just being terrified for nonstop.
I have a very strong feeling that the medicine will keep your brain subdued.
Fingers crossed. I bought that ostrich cocoon where I blow it up and it just encases me in a private little dome. So that I can shut out all outside forces and influences. Hopefully I can just stay in there for like the 11 hours I'm going to be just distraught.
Just remember, you're in a bowl of Jell-O.
Yeah.
That's what they say, right? Think about that.
I'm literally in a bowl of Jell-O. This skeleton and all my fucking candy I've been eating lately out of stress and just Taco Bell because we're not buying groceries this week. So we're just eating like nonsense. So.
Good for you, honestly. Treat yourself to a little Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you, Taco Bell. Man, it's going to be hard having to eat all this Tuscan cuisine and not having what I really want, which is spicy potato soft taco.
You know that there's probably a fucking Taco Bell right. Like you've seen there, isn't it in fucking Egypt where like right in the view of the pyramids is like a fucking KFC? Like
I genuinely thought I Googled, are there Taco Bells in Florence? And there is one, but it's fucking Florence, Arizona. Get out of my face! Are there Taco Bells in Florence, Italy?
I'm telling you, like, it's literally a KFC. I knew it. God, sometimes my brain is gorgeous. Look at this. It's a KFC.
Oh, that's in Egypt, though. I'm looking for Florence.
I know, but I'm saying, like, if they're willing to do this, there's a Taco Bell in Italy, is all I'm saying.
There isn't.
Yes, there is.
Damn it. Is there a Taco Bell? Is there a Taco Bell in Rome?
There's a bunch in Italy right now. I'm looking at them.
I can't
in
find
Rome, though.
Are you sure you're looking in Florence? Aha!
Yeah.
They're not actual Taco Bells, though. It's like Pico's Taqueria.
There's not one in Florence. There is an actual Taco Bell, though, in over in Venice.
I am so far away from Venice. You have no idea.
And
Your American geography is flexing hard.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, in general, like, in Italy, there's going to be one at the top of the boot near Venice and at the bottom of the boot near Sorrento. And those are your only Taco Bells. And
Wait,
those are
I'm
actual
Googling
Taco Bell establishments.
Okay, well, I'm going to Google how far away Florence. I hope people are just losing their minds right now with how disrespectful we're being. I don't care. Now I'm curious.
Like, the city of Rome, the city of Cantillini, there's a bunch of Taco Bells. I just did Taco Bell in Italy and they popped up.
From Florence to Venice, it's about 2 hours and 24 minutes. Honestly, worth the trip. What was the other one? Sorrento?
Yeah, Sorrento.
That one's about 4 hours and 20
so yeah, just go up the boot. You know what I mean? Go up the boot.
I'm just going to do Taco Bell, Italy to Florence.
That's what I did.
Oh, no. For some reason, it's routing me from Taco Bell, Italy, Texas to Florence. And it says we cannot calculate that. So,
if you technically want the true city, it's Vicenza.
I'm not typing that in.
So
I am going to a comic shop though in Florence, so I'll stay true to my roots.
Maybe they'll have Taco Bell there. You never know.
I'm gonna ask.
Yeah, ask.
They're gonna be like, we have this delicious Florentini, and I'm gonna be like, get that out of my face. I want Taco Bell.
Yeah, they're gonna spit on you for sure.
Yeah.
Well,
I deserve nothing less. So,
we'll see you when you're back. We'll enjoy this next week off, and I will be jealous knowing that you're in Italy.
I've given you so many chances to replace me, and you took none of them. So
sorry,
and I'm a little mad at you about it.
You're gonna have a good time.
All right, well, let's get the heck out of here.
Let's get the hell out of here.
All right, bye.
Bye.